Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news and rumor video to discuss. We got some signs to talk about from our past couple of days, some injury updates, some waiver updates, and a couple of trade rumors involving the Senators, Stars, Hurricanes, and Canucks. And we'll do all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey Channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support. We're new to all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss in today's video. So in today's video, we're going to start today's video off as usual by talking about some signings from our past couple of days. We saw two signings happen over the past couple of days, and they were both ELCs. First was the Columbus Blue Jackets. We saw them sign Luca Marelli, who's the right shot defenseman, to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $870,000. They'll begin at either to start this year or next year. It was a third-round pick, 86th overall back in the 2024 draft. Last year, 57 points in 67 OHL games. So far this year, already has 41 points in 31 games and has 8 more goals than he did last year. So Marelli looks like a fantastic offensive defenseman there for the Blue Jackets. Probably still going to be a year or two away before he becomes an NHLer or has the opportunity to play at the NHL level, but still, it's a pretty good ELC, and with the way he's playing right now, I don't blame the Jackets for signing him to his ELC. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Jackets to sign a 2024 draft pick to his ELC. And then we saw the Philadelphia Flyers sign an undrafted prospect to a new ELC, and that's Jacob Gaucher. Gaucher, who's a center, signs a 2-year ELC with the AV of $873,000. That'll be for the rest of this year plus next year. Gaucher has been playing over in the minors over the past couple of years. Been basically an AHLer over the past little while. Last year, split time between the AHL and ECHL, putting up 16 points in 59 AHL games, also gone to 3 ECHL games. So far this year, already has the same point total as last year, which is 16, but only played 24 games this year in the AHL. So he's looking like a really good AHLer. Could maybe be a call-up option there if the Flyers run into some injuries. So signed to a 2-year ELC. He's going to be signed for this year, next year, and that could be a really good pickup there for the Flyers. So not too many signs here to talk about, but there were 2 ELCs as third-round pick from the 2024 draft, Luca Marelli. It's in the 3-year ELC in Columbus. An undrafted prospect who's been playing in the AHL over the past couple of years, Jacob Gaucher, signs the ELC with the Philadelphia Flyers, and those guys are both going to be potential call-up options, or it could be in the minors for the rest of the year, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. Going over to some injury updates from our past little while. So we have a lot of injury updates to talk about here. First, with the New York Islanders, Anthony Duclair and Alan Pelech both practice in non-contact jerseys as may return to game action before the holiday break. Pelech from his upper body injury, Duclair from his lower body injury. So both have been out for quite some time. I think Pelech's been out for, it's got to be near a month now, and Duclair's been out for over a month. So good to see them potentially get back before the holiday break. So we'll have to wait and see if they are able to get back before the holiday break happens. For New Jersey Devils, Nathan Bastian was activated off a long-term injury reserve and got back into game action after missing a month and a half with a jaw injury. So really bad to see that Bastian was out for that long, but it's great to see him get back, and it's a big boost to the Devils' bottom 6. Arthur Kaliev was sent to the AHL on a conditioning stint and may be able to return in the next week or two for the Kings. That could be a big boost there, as Kaliev, who is a hot rumor topic in the offseason since he wanted a fresh start, could be getting into game action not just in future, so that could be a big boost there for the Kings to get a solid bottom 6 forward back. Toronto's Max Domi was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday after missing 8 games with a lower body injury, so it's a big boost there for the Leafs as they get their 3C back in Max Domi. That could be a really big boost there for the Leafs. Will Smith was placed on injury reserve with upper body injury and will be out for the next at least week, maybe a little bit longer, so it's a bad blow there for the Sharks. So Barclay Goodrow was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Tuesday after missing 5 games with upper body injury. So Gaudreau was out for quite a bit of time, but he's now back, so that's a really good boost there for the Sharks. Nikolai Ehlers has started skating, but is still out with a lower body injury, so hopefully Ehlers can return in the next week or two, but that's a big boost there for the Jets to see Ehlers finally start to skate. Gustav Nyquist missed Tuesday's game with an illness in his day-to-day, so it's a bad blow there for the Preds as they lose the top 6 forward for at least the next game or two. Carolina's Jack Drury left Tuesday's game with upper body injury and may miss some significant time, so it's a horrible blow there for the Hurricanes as Drury may be out for a pretty big chunk of time, so that's a really bad blow there for Carolina. Trevor Zegras is getting a second opinion on his knee injury as he will miss a lot of time, so it's expected for him to miss probably at least a couple of weeks, if maybe not a month or two, but he's getting a second opinion on that, so we'll have to wait and see what happens after he gets his second opinion. St. Louis's Nick Leddy suffered a setback and returned to St. Louis with his lower body injury, so he's probably going to miss at least the next couple of games for the Blues after suffering a setback, so that's a bad blow there for St. Louis. Alex Ovechkin started skating in a non-contact jersey and could be nearing a return from his leg injury. That could be a big boost there, not only for the Capitals, but for Ovechkin's chase of Gretzky's record, so that could be a really big boost to see Ovechkin return maybe in the next week or two. Well, Tom Wilson suffered a minor bone fracture on Saturday, but shouldn't miss too much time with his injury, so he did take a puck to the face, I think it was, so it was a bad play there and Wilson took the brunt of it, but it seems like he shouldn't miss too much time, so that's really good news there for the Caps. Igor Chinnikov, who's now missed I think 7 games with upper body injury, he's now been placed on injury reserve and will be out for at least the next little while, so it's a bad blow there for the Jackets as they lose a top 9 forward to injury. Buffalo's Matthias Samuelsson was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Wednesday after missing 12 games with a lower body injury, so Samuelsson was out for quite some time, but that's a big boost to the Sabres D-core to see him get back. Cam Talbot should be back on Thursday after missing 4 games with a lower body injury, so that's a very fantastic pickup there for the Red Wings to get their starting goaltender back. And David Gustafsson is in concussion protocol for the Winnipeg Jets since day-to-day, so hopefully Gustafsson's not going to be out for an overly long period of time because he's a decent bottom 6 forward for the Jets, but that's bad to see Gustafsson be out for the Winnipeg Jets. So lots of interesting injury updates from the past couple of days. Good to see guys like Samuelsson, Talbot, Gaudreau, and Domi all get back to game action and they didn't look too bad in their returns, but bad news to see guys like Zegras, Drury, Nyquist, and Smith all be out with injuries and hopefully they're not going to be out for an overly long period of time. So interesting injury updates there. Next, going over to a couple of waiver updates. When we last talked about it, there were no waiver updates. There have been a couple since then. So back over on Tuesday, we saw Alec Regula be placed on waivers by the Boston Bruins. I think Regula started the season on season opening injury reserve, so he needed waivers to be sent down to the minors. I think we talked about this in our last video, so he was on waivers. The Oilers did claim Alec Regula, so the Oilers, you know, haven't had the greatest of D-cores right now. They have Norris, Ekholm, and Bouchard as a solid top 3, but after that, it really does start to trail off a little bit, so I'm not sure how much Regula can get in to be a consistent NHLer. They have Dermott, they have Stetcher, they have a couple of other guys on that D-core, so I'm not exactly sure how much playing time Regula will get, but the Oilers obviously saw an opportunity on a player that they feel could be a really good boost to that D-core, so Regula is now going to be in Edmonton, so I'm not sure if that's a really big loss for Boston given the fact they're placing on waivers to get him to the AHL, but that's an interesting waiver claim there from the Oilers. And then we also saw over on Wednesday, Dakota Mermis and Alex Nylander both be placed on waivers by the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Leafs now getting a little bit healthier. Pacioretty's gone back, Domi's gone back, Matthews and Nyes have gone back. They don't really need Nylander anymore, at least at NHL level, so placing him on waivers for the purpose of sending him down to the AHL. Dakota Mermis, I think, just gotten off of long-term injury reserve, so I wouldn't expect anyone to claim him given the fact he's coming off of a very long-term injury that started at the beginning of the season, so I would expect Mermis to probably clear. I could see a team or two take a chance on Nylander, just given the fact he's a solid bottom 6 forward. And then the San Jose Sharks put Valtteri Pulley on unconditional waivers for purpose of contract termination. So Pulley obviously feels like he's not getting enough time at the NHL level, so he wants to get a fresh start, and it seems like the Sharks are willing to let him get a fresh start. So I think Pulley, Mermis will probably clear. I would say Nylander probably clears too, but I think there's a small chance that he could wind up being claimed. So we're going to have to wait and see on this in our next video, but at this point in time, we saw Alec Regula be placed on waivers by Boston and claimed by the Edmonton Oilers, and now the Cole Mermis and Alex Nylander are both on waivers for Toronto, and Valtteri Pulley is on unconditional waivers for San Jose. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there with those waiver updates. Those are all the waiver updates from the past couple of days. Before we get into our trade rumor video, I want to talk about a recent retirement we saw, and that's with longtime NHLer Kevin Shattenkirk. Shattenkirk, who was a pending UFA, he didn't have a contract with an NHL team, has officially called it a career. So Shattenkirk had himself a fantastic NHL career. He started off his career in the Colorado organization, then he spent a long time with St. Louis. He was then dealt to Washington. After he spent time in Washington, he spent 2 years in New York. After spending 2 years in New York, he spent a year in Tampa, which I think was the year that he won the Cup with the Bolts. After he played with Tampa, he spent 3 seasons in Anaheim, helped some of their young defensemen grow a little bit. Then he spent last year in Boston, and he wound up calling a career after that. So he does have 1 Stanley Cup to his resume. He's been a fantastic top 4 defenseman throughout his entire career. His best seasons by far came with St. Louis, where he had 4 consecutive 40-plus point seasons from the 13-14 to 16-17 season. Like, Shattenkirk was a really really great player for the St. Louis Blues. And then, like we said, he's been to Washington, New York Rangers, Tampa to help them win a cup. He's also been to Anaheim and Boston. So he's been around quite a bit around the NHL for a long period of time. So great news to see Shattenkirk call it a career. He had a fantastic career, won a Stanley Cup with the Bolts. So a pretty good career there for the Shattenkirk, and he calls it a career after 13 or 14 seasons at the NHL level. So really great stuff there for Shattenkirk. Spent with a lot of teams and winning a Stanley Cup. And those are the only other pieces of news we have to talk about here today. Next, going over to a couple of trade rumors. Now, when it comes to the trade rumors, we have a few things to talk about here today. I'm going to start off with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, I saw a recent article talking about their defensive situation. Now, this Canucks team does not have an overly great defense. Their offseason acquisitions of Desharnais, Forbort, they've been all right, but they haven't been overly great. Brandstrom, so they haven't been fantastic. Some of them have been better than others. Desharnais's been a healthy scratch a couple of times. Forbort's been injured multiple times. Brandstrom's been all right as a third pair defenseman, but hasn't worked overly great as a second pair defenseman. And now with the injury to Philip Hronek, there's been a lot of speculation out there that the Canucks, well, they may try and fill from within and just call up some of their AHL players. There's also some speculation out there saying that the Canucks may try and go after a defenseman. Now, a couple of names that I saw linked in this article were Rasmus Andersson, Cam Fowler, and Marcus Pettersson. They all make some sort of sense. So we know that last year, after they suffered a couple of defensive injuries, even though they're going to be back before the regular season ended, we know they went out and acquired Nikita Zadorov. That was a really good pickup there for the Canucks. Worked out fantastically for them. So could they try and do something similar this year? I think it's possible. We know that they have Hughes and Hronek, who's a solid top pair when Hronek's healthy. They also have Myers, Seuss. They have Desharnais, Forbort, Brandstrom. So they have a solid D-core, but they could definitely use another top four defenseman. So Rasmus Andersson has this year plus next year at $4.25 million cap hit. Pettersson's a pending UFA with the AAV of just over $4 million. Fowler's got this year plus next year at $6.5 million cap hit. Andersson and Fowler are really good puck moving defensemen, although Fowler's getting up there in age. Pettersson's more of a defensive minded defenseman, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. I could see the Canucks have a really good fit for all three of those guys. I think they probably want to target Andersson, given the fact he's a right shot defenseman, and it might make more sense, but I could see him target a Fowler or a Pettersson if they were able to get some massive improvements. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there, but definitely it does sound like the Canucks may try and test out the D market, may try and explore a defensive market. It's not going to be easy because teams like the Rangers and the Senators are also scouring the D market right now and are also looking for some defensive help, but it does seem like the Canucks really do want to try and make some improvements. So we're going to have to wait and see on this. Do they try and fill in these spots internally until Hronek gets back in a couple of months, or are they going to try and make some sort of big deal to try and add, and could guys like Fowler, Andersson, or Pettersson be sort of trade chips there for the Canucks? We're going to have to wait and see on that. When it comes to Dallas Stars, we know Jeff Merrick recently talked with them potentially maybe making some sort of a big move. Well, one of Jeff Merrick's colleagues, Colby Cohen, was talking about this on Daily Faceoff, and he says that he can see the Stars try and target a pair of Calgary Flames players. He says that the Stars should try and target, and he could see trying and targeting guys like Nazem Kadri and Rasmus Andersson. Now, I know the Stars don't have the best of blue lines. We know they lost a couple of pieces, especially Chris Tanev in the offseason. They have Leo Bushkin, they have Dumba, Heiskanen, Lindell, Harley. They have a decent defensive core, but they're not the greatest and definitely not the best in that Central Division. So could they benefit from adding Alec Regula, Andersson? It's quite possible. I know they're definitely looking for a second line center with Tyler Seguin out right now. So Kadri could be a fantastic fit in that second line center spot. Now, if they were to try and go after both of these guys, it would cost a ton. Probably looking like a first round pick, another draft pick, a fantastic young NHL player, a solid prospect, and probably something else as well if they were to try and target both Kadri and Andersson. Now, the Stars do have some decent prospects. They could try and pull it off. They have some younger guys, definitely like Bork, Bichelle, Stankoven. I'm not exactly sure how many of those guys they want to trade, but the Stars do have the assets to pull that sort of a deal off. Now, I could definitely see them trying to improve, but I'm not sure if they'd want to try and add both Kadri and Andersson. I think if they were to try and target one, maybe like a Kadri after the second line center for the rest of the regular season, I could see that'd be a really good fit there for the Stars. I could see them trying to do that. I'm not sure if they try and target both, but we know the Stars definitely looking for some improvements. We know they could use another defenseman. They could definitely use the second line center with Seguin out, so it makes some sense. It doesn't make some sense to me as well, but I think they could try and make an addition. But Colby Cohen definitely thinks that Dallas and Calgary could hook up on a deal that could send Nazem Kadri and Rasmus Andersson to Dallas. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but I think there's a very likely possibility we could see Dallas try and target one of Calgary's players. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. When it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes, there's been some more recent speculation. According to a couple of recent reports, we've seen Carolina was heavily in on Mackenzie Blackwood before he was dealt to Colorado, and given the fact they weren't able to pony up the asking price the Sharks were looking for, it wasn't able to come to fruition. So the Carolina Hurricanes are still, at this point, according to a couple of recent reports, including from Pierre LeBrun, scouring the goalie market looking for some sort of a goalie upgrade. They still don't have the utmost confidence in what their goaltending is right now. Tokarski, Martin are decent stopgap options, but they're not solid backups. Kochetkov has really struggled at times this year to be that solid starting goaltender for the Hurricanes, and Frederik Andersson's still going to be out for probably at least another couple months due to his injury. So Pierre LeBrun was recently talking about this, and he mentioned that there are two routes that the Carolina Hurricanes could go after. He says that the first route is they've identified a target, a trade chip from their team, a goaltender who they could try and acquire in the not too distant future and try and really target him to sort of get a little bit of a better goaltending that they have right now with Martin or Tokarski as backup. The other one is they could wait until closer to the March 7th trade deadline, and then they could try and target goaltender then, given the fact that they'll have a little more time to evaluate Kochetkov and see how Andersson's recovering from his injuries. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but it definitely does sound like the Hurricanes are still in the goalie market, and even though they missed out on Blackwood, they're still looking for some sort of a goalie upgrade, and a name that really has been linked to them over the past while is a guy like John Gibson. He's a solid starting level goaltender. He's got 2 to 3 years left on his deal at $6.4 million, so he could be a really solid starting level goaltender, especially with Andersson in the final year of his deal. A Gibson-Kochetkov tandem could be a very fantastic thing there for the Hurricanes. Now, will they pony up the asking price for Gibson? I'm not exactly sure, but I think Gibson in Carolina could be a really good fit. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but I've seen a couple of recent reports saying that the Hurricanes were in on Blackwood and they missed out on him, and they're still looking for a goaltender to help Kochetkov, and one of the names that I've seen linked to the Carolina Hurricanes is John Gibson. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to the Ottawa Senators. When it comes to the Sens, we know that we talked earlier in the year about potentially Josh Norris being moved. Well, there's been even more recent updates saying that the Sens have listened this year on Josh Norris, including from David Pagnotta of fourthpierre.com. David Pagnotta recently said that the Sens are listening on Josh Norris and have been listening all season. Pagnotta also says that there has been some rumblings about Thomas Chabot and Drake Batherson potentially being on the trade block too, but he says that Norris is the main trade chip there for the Senators. If I'm the Senators, I don't move Batherson because he's looking phenomenal right now, especially after that hat trick he saw over on Wednesday. When it comes to Chabot, I know there's potentiality there, they could move him, but he's a solid top 4 defenseman. And if they're looking for a top 4 defenseman, you don't want to move a top 4 defenseman, so I would try and keep Chabot and definitely not moving Batherson. But Norris seems to be a name who's potentially out there. They have Pinto, they have Greg, they both can play center, so if they were to move off from Norris to get some sort of a defensive upgrade, they could put Pinto as the second line center, they can put Greg as the third line center, they'd be completely fine. So that's probably why Norris is sort of the one that they're listening on and sort of the expendable piece in Ottawa. Now, he's a former 30 goal scorer. He had a really great season a couple of years back, putting up 55 points in 65 games. So Norris is a solid player, so they probably don't want to lose him for nothing and don't want to make a trade where they sort of look back on this in a couple of years' time and see that Norris is thriving in another organization. So I think they want to be careful potentially moving Norris, but it sounds like he's sort of the expendable piece in Ottawa. According to David Pagnotta, it sounds like he's sort of the maybe odd man out in Ottawa. He's the guy who a lot of teams are checking in on, and we're going to have to wait and see on if a Norris move comes to fruition in the not too distant future. But according to David Pagnotta, he says that Chabot and Batherson's names are potentially out there. They're very likely trade candidates as well. But Norris, according to Pagnotta, is the very likely trade candidate for Ottawa, and there's a very likely chance we'll see Norris get moved in the not too distant future if the Ottawa Senators feel they can move him and get an upgrade, especially on the blue line. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's what we're talking for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think about Norris? Does he get moved by Ottawa? And if so, what sort of return do you think Ottawa could get? Could they get a top 4 defenseman in return? Definitely get your thoughts on that. What do you think about Dallas and Calgary? Could they hook up on a deal that could send one or both of Kadri or Andersson to Dallas? And if so, what would the Calgary Flames ask for in return? Do you think we could see Carolina pull off a goalie move at some point in season with Andersson being out and Kochetkov not doing overly great? Could they try and target Gibson? Could they try and target someone else? Definitely get your thoughts on all of that. Plus, what do you think about the Canucks? Do they try and target the defenseman like a Fowler, Andersson, Pettersson, or do they try and sort of work internally until Ronick gets back? Definitely have to get thoughts on all of that. Plus the retirement of Shattenkirk, the injury updates, the waiver updates, and the signings from our past couple of days. Definitely have to get thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today or until the latest video. video. If you liked it, remember to subscribe down below. Thank you all your support and with you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment on the comment section below so someone else listen to this video. Also, a blog to with news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. It will link down in the description below. And can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.